As I just said, welcome, dear participants. I will now switch to English. I just announced this in German. And for your orientation, we have now 4 guests, but the 2 first guests are divided into 2 topics. No, this was right. This was not right. 4 guests are divided in 2 topics now. I got it. The first topic part is leadership and transformation process. And the second topic part is called promotion of young talent. And both topic parts comprise 2 talks from our international guests. The 2 slots are followed by a joint conversation. And for the first topic, leadership and transformation processes, I'm very happy to welcome 2 internationally renowned experts, whom I would like to introduce to you briefly. Our first guest is Hilary Carty. I don't know if she's already here, not yet, but we will see her soon. She's the Executive Director of the Clore Leadership Program since 2017. And this is a program that values equality, diversity, and inclusion. And it's perfect for our program. It aims at developing and strengthening leadership potential across the cultural and creative sectors. So in terms of content, there are really some parallels, or many, to the 360 program. Before, from 2006 to 2011, she was already the director of the Cultural Leadership Program. And she's definitely the right person for us to talk to when it comes to leadership and transformation processes. About her work in these programs, she said in an interview, I just want to share a small quote, "What became apparent through the commissioning and delivery of those leadership programs was the need to build a diverse range of access points for today's leaders, ensuring both variety and flexibility to match the very eclectic nature of organizations across the sector," unquote. Hilary Carty recorded her talk briefly before the conference, and the title is "Society Needs Great Culture and Great Culture Needs Great Leaders." I think that's a great title. The digital stage is yours, Hilary Carty. Dear technical team, please roll it.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you to the German Federal Cultural Foundation for your kind invitation to speak. Issues of cultural engagement, diversity, inclusion, and widening access to the very best of cultural experiences are subjects that are close to my heart. So it's a pleasure to be here today and to contribute to the important work that you are doing. My perspectives are based on over 30 years of work as a general manager, policymaker, trainer, independent consultant, and director of 2 of the UK's most high-profile investments in cultural leadership. One of those is Clore Leadership, and here our business is to provide a dynamic and inclusive resource for leaders and aspiring leaders in the arts, culture, and creative sectors. We were established in 2003 to harness the strengths of those leading culture and to build and support future generations of cultural leaders. After 18 years, we have an alumni that includes directors of many of the UK's leading cultural institutions, curators.
Danke. Habt ihr das absichtlich gemacht? Achso.
Of working across the cultural and creative industries to lead culture and cultural development. So my title today is "Society Needs Great Culture and Great Culture Needs Great Leaders." But what does great mean in the context of contemporary culture, in the shadow of a global pandemic, and knowing that the systems we have established have not served the whole of society well? Today, we're exploring how to achieve more diversity in cultural institutions. Well, that's a huge and complex question, and one that should be high on the agenda for all leaders. Certainly, Issues of diversity and inclusion are now a fundamental element of every programme and every course that we provide at Clore Leadership. With an average of 14% of the UK population, and in some cities between 25 and 50% of citizens being from diverse cultures, in the UK context, this theme is non-negotiable. Looking specifically at Germany, I do want to affirm the recommendations of the Diversity for the Future report and the aspirations of the 360 Degrees Fund for New City Cultures. In particular, it seems to me that the recommendations regarding prioritising management level job profiles, continuing to finance diversity agent positions, and providing sustained budgetary, personnel and time resources are crucial. Because like the Federation, I'm particularly keen to look at long-term solutions, not a one-off initiative or a festival which appeals to diverse audiences, but does not change the curation, production, or management personnel. Those are the roles where long-term shifts can really make a difference. And this does mean addressing both the attitudes to diversity and the infrastructure for inclusion. Good words are just not enough. Great leadership means acknowledging that it is essential to be proactive and determined. Now, in my ideal world, all leaders will acknowledge the role they can play to make that difference. They will acknowledge that they have influence, even if they do not have ultimate control. But if we're not yet in that ideal world, I would ask three things from leaders in today's institutions. The first, be prepared to share power. The second, go beyond entry-level training. And the third, don't expect immediate results. In our cultural world, careers are difficult and challenging. The very good jobs are not always easily accessible, and getting to a leadership role, a position of power, can be very arduous. It takes time and a lot of hard work. So when we do get to those leadership positions as officers, managers, directors, intendants, it's understandably very hard to think of sharing power. After all, we've had to work really hard to earn the right to make those decisions, to be able to develop new ideas and to lead. So I fully understand that holding on to power does not start as a desire to be exclusive. It is rather the outcome of us trying to do our jobs well. But if we only recruit staff who have the same background, the same qualifications and the same experiences as we do because we understand them, then we cannot hope to diversify the workforce. We cannot hope to open up the possibilities for career progression and, critically, for leadership progression. Everyone in a leadership position today has to measure how much they are part of the problem or part of the solution. Because if new and different perspectives are to be brought in, then surely existing and familiar perspectives need to make room. I'm not really trying to be controversial. It just seems obvious to me. Things cannot change if we don't agree to share the power of decision making. Leaders must be proactive in growing the skills and experiences of the next generation of cultural leaders. Our work is to develop our teams as well as to develop our organisations. And if everyone looks the same as they did 20 years ago, how can we say that we are engaging with and reflecting society around us, when that society has certainly changed, sometimes quite distinctly? In today's world, the roles of the consumer and the creator are blurring, and diverse communities cannot simply be purchasers of cultural experience. They too want to learn how to create and produce the fantastic cultural work that touches the human spirit and moves us with joy or with sadness. They too want to be able to determine what culture is produced, where and how. My second request is for real engagement in progressing the careers of the best diverse leaders. Entry-level training or early career training is fine, but what about those who are not early career? How might you help mid-career leaders to reach the next stage in their development? Could you, for instance, sponsor or advocate for the diverse leaders who you know to be good? Could you mentor individuals so that they get the qualifications they need to meet your criteria? Are your criteria really relevant? Is there an equivalent way of judging the skills, competencies, and aptitudes for the role, even without the qualification? Or might you consider a dedicated program of learning and experiences for diverse leaders that accelerates their learning within an organization or across a network of organizations and ensures that they acquire the breadth of experiences they will certainly need for managing well? In the corporate sector, they would do this with the high flyers or the high potential individuals. Can we use this approach in culture to achieve our aspirations for better diversity? I did say I would ask you to be proactive and determined. And that brings me to my third request. From what I see in the UK, one of the biggest challenges to sustainable diversity development is that institutions expect quick results. And they get very deflated when things are not immediately successful. Now, that's a tough requirement to place on yourselves as institutions and on the diverse leaders. Imagine the pressure of having to be successful, of having to achieve amazing outcomes and change cultural practice for the sector at large, just as one individual. You can be overly aware that the institution has invested in you and they want their successful outcome. They don't want embarrassment or failure. That's very tough for the individuals in whom you are investing. Can you ease the journey? Can you work with a range of results and expect to be there for the long term? It requires courage. And I would ask you to hold your nerve and hold the courage to really support diverse leadership. Don't give up. And that's why the 360-degree program recommendation to work in networks and interest groups is so valuable. To have colleagues who can understand your aspirations and offer support is hugely helpful when things are not going to plan. In closing, as I have asked for 3 things, I also want to offer you 3 things. My first is connection. If you're attending this conference, you have already taken a first positive step to connect, to inquire, to explore, to learn. Connection is key, so please do use all the facilities we have here to seek out allies, friends for the long journey. My second offer is commitment. Sustainable change takes time and full engagement. So I encourage you to take that commitment to support each other when the journey gets challenging. And finally, I offer you courage. You will need to lead and to make some difficult decisions. Your decisions will not always be popular, but when you know it's right, I wish you the courage to stay on that path. We know that culture transforms, so let's use our cultural leadership to create the world we want, not just to settle for the world we have. Thank you.
Dear Hilary, thank you so much for your inspiring and open words. I'm really looking forward to talking to you later on. Our second guest, dear participants, is Pap Ndiaye. He is a French historian specialized in the social history of the United States with a focus on its minorities. Since 2021, he is the director of the, now please excuse my French pronunciation, Palais de la Porte Dorée Paris, which houses also the French National Museum of Immigration History. He is also, since 2012, a professor of history at the Institut d'études politiques de Paris, and he co-wrote a report on diversity at the Paris Opera. In our preliminary talk, he said something very practical, I think, about the responsibility of leaders regarding recruitment strategies. I quote, "Be more proactive. If you really want a diverse staff, lower the bar, go to the educational institutions and recruit the potential employers. Even if they are not a perfect fit for the institution yet, but let them grow in the institution and vice versa. And don't open a new position as if you would open a new store," unquote. I think that's a great quote, Pap Ndiaye. We are looking forward to your impulse. He also recorded the talk just shortly before the conference. Dear technical team, please roll it.
Good afternoon. My name is Pap Ndiaye, and I'm the head of the National Museum in the History of Immigration in Paris, France. My experience is based on this tenure at the museum, as well as my past experience working in the Opéra de Paris on issues of diversity, as well as in other cultural institutions. Clearly, there is a wide acknowledgement in Europe and also in the Americas and possibly elsewhere that cultural institutions need to be more connected to the different social and cultural groups of society. In Germany, German society is more diverse and more multicultural than ever. So these cultural institutions need not to be anymore the ivory towers of white bourgeois elites, especially when it comes to the highly central cultural institutions such as the Museum of Fine Arts, the opera houses, the philharmonic orchestras, and so on and so forth. This issue of diversity is not just a matter of justice, which in itself would be a reason good enough to act, but also a condition for the long-term survival of costly institutions. Classic cultural institutions must be relevant in the current times in the 21st century. The challenge to transform long-established institutions is as great and as important as creating new institutions. So the reflection about long-term diversity measures is crucial. It is long-term. No miracle results in one stroke will happen in any case. There are lots of efforts to make. These efforts might be disappointing sometimes, but there is a need for long-term vision. All the recommendations in the document make sense. I would like to insist on two main issues, which I think are of primary importance. The first issue is about the necessity to cooperate with partners and communities. It is indeed so important to establish these links of confidence and long-term conversation to create lasting structures and relationships between cultural institutions and the diverse communities, especially in large cities, whether in Germany or in France. It also means paying attention to cultural and to current debates, such as the debates related to the history and memory of colonization. This last issue is absolutely crucial, as establishing this partnership with local communities does not only mean having an open door and welcome these communities, but also pay attention to what they have to say, pay attention to their own history, pay attention to the narratives they have and that they may wish to be included in the museum. So this reflection on communities leads me to my second point, which is the content. Indeed, the museums and cultural institutions in general need to reflect on the very content, the cultural content, the concerts, the music, the fine arts, the paintings, whatever they have to offer. And the content is something that might be missing in the document. What do we make of the repertoire? What do we make of the sometimes old artistic creations that are filled with many colonial, sexist, sometimes racist images and stories? This is a very important issue. And last year, when working on the Opera House in Paris, we delved into the issue of the repertoire, of course, most of it being of the 19th century, the century of colonization. So what do we make of operas or ballets such as Petrouchka, such as La Bayadère of the late 19th century with racist images? What do we make of blackface practices which have been so common in the opera of the 19th century and 20th century for that matter? These issues need to be addressed. We need to reflect on the repertoire. The same is true with painting. If you think of the interesting example given by the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam in his recent exhibition on slavery and the connections made between the paintings, the Dutch paintings of the 17th century and the issue of the slave trade with which the Dutch were closely connected for decades. All these issues need to be reflected, and I think it's also part of the reflection on diversity. This reflection is not just about people. The necessity to include minority people into these cultural institutions is quite obvious, for sure, and it is of primary importance. And I'm happy that the document insists on that. But I would also add the issue of what these cultural institutions have to do, how they relate to the current times, how they relate to the 21st century, how they reinterpret, how they play, so to speak, with the heritage, which is, as I said, structured by often stereotypical visions of non-European worlds. So these issues are important, and in the work on the opera, we didn't recommend any boycott or any way to sweep under the rug pieces that we wouldn't be pleased with. But we believe that the current artist can recreate, can reinvent, can find creative ways to play with these stereotypes. And also we believe that old style practices need to be banished, such as the blackface practices that still exist in many opera houses throughout the world. So all these issues are, I think, important, and in my own institution, I try to work on them in many ways, very much in line with the guidelines which are in the document. Hiring a diversity officer is clearly a very important move. someone who is committed to the issues of diversity. For sure, it is important. Teaching, educating the staff, the management, the managers to these issues is of primary importance indeed. Finding the right processes in connection with the public institutions, for example, in my case, the Ministry of Culture, is also very important. And as I said, finding ways to relate and interact with local communities. For example, we're planning an exhibit on Asian migrants to France in a couple of years from now. And we have established this conversation and partnership with a number of associations of people of Asian descent in the Paris area and the greater Paris. So all this matters very much. And of course, as I said, this is a long-term process. We should not be discouraged. We should not be considering that efforts do not pay. If we don't see any concrete results, this takes time in any case. But I think it's highly crucial to start this process, find ways to make conclusions, temporary conclusions, and move forward. The last point being, of course, to interact with international cultural institutions and benchmark the practices so as to move forward the best way. Thank you.
Dear Pap Ndiaye, thank you so much for your talk. Both of you, hi. Now we can see you. Hi, Hilary. Hi, Pap Ndiaye. It's great that you're here, that you took the time and are now also free for a short talk with us. But I'm not alone anymore. You have met, dear participants, you have met Clara Michaela Dvorak before. She will support me as a sidekick to submit your questions. So please, if you're still reflecting, please post your questions. We will try to submit them to our renowned experts and guests. Thank you very much that you're here. So, Hilary, good words are not enough. How true. And in this section, we are talking about leadership and transformation. So I was thinking, when for the feasibility of transformation, how can leaders, very concrete, be prepared for the great transformation process? How do you, with your experience, prepare them?
Okay, well, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and to engage with you on this fantastic subject. I think that it's important to prepare the mindset of leaders to ensure that they are open to the issues about why diversity is important, that they don't just look at this as a challenge and as a difficulty, but actually embrace it for what it is, which is an opportunity to be really relevant. If we're not relevant as organizations to the communities around us, then we have to ask, what are we aiming to do in terms of cultural provision? So for me, preparing the mindsets of leaders to fully engage with diversity is a really important place to start. Let's ask the difficult questions. Let's face the difficult challenges. Let's bring it into the open so that we can discuss it, and then we can start the work.
Then we can start the work. I mean, when we are discussing difficult questions, I will just go one step further, Pap Ndiaye. I want to talk about pressure. How can we increase the pressure of the necessity of change, regarding the necessity of change, if, and now this is the crucial point, if the current leaders are not affected by the consequences of their doing or wrong decisions?
Yes, hello again. It's a real pleasure to be with you all. My answer would be twofold. First, the first point would be civil society. If leaders of cultural institutions do not pay enough attention or seem aloof vis-à-vis the issues we discuss, I believe that civil society has a role to play. Associations, people can write letters, can ask for more inclusion and diversity. Second, politics. In France, where major cultural institutions are part of the Minister of Culture, which is my case, politics is important. The Minister of Culture, the French government can also put pressure onto cultural institutions and say, okay, the budgets, the national guidelines have to include issues of diversity and a better inclusion. We need some form of pressure. We need to include these issues when contracting with the state. So all this is important and may play a role in the transformation we are all expecting in and within these cultural institutions. I would add a third point, which is the comparison with international institutions when debating with colleagues from foreign institutions, whether in Europe or beyond Europe. I've often noticed that the heads of French museums tend to pay attention. They also tend to pay attention to the way their own institution is seen by international visitors, by their international colleagues. So that may also play a role. As you may know, for example, in Paris, we have the UNESCO, the United Nations cultural and educational institution, and the UNESCO pays attention to that. So all this also plays a role into what I would describe, at least in France, the slow movement, the cautious movement towards more diversity and inclusion. So the pace needs to accelerate for sure, no question about that. But things are slowly moving in the good direction.
So I just wanted to ask, Clara, there are still no questions. Please, dear audience, if you want to participate, please participate. If not, I have a whole load of questions and we can continue with the discussion. I would like to stay just a short time with you, Pap Ndiaye. We have the saying, this quote from the German writer Bertolt Brecht, who said that it's democratic to transform a small circle of experts, of knowledgeable people, into a big circle. So you were just addressing the pressure from both sides. And I would like to go back a little bit from the strong word pressure to this enjoyment, because he also said, Bertolt Brecht also said, because the contemplation of art can only lead to real enjoyment if there is an art of contemplation. So is this the incentive which we can offer? Is this something, you know, the breadcrumb or the big present we can offer to the leaders?
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is, it is absolutely crucial to realize that let's say the content of the exhibitions and what cultural institutions have to offer be in, prepared, be thought, be planned with the experts, for sure, in the fine arts, in the historians, whatever you may think of, the academia, of course, but also with people from the civil society, people from associations, and the like. And they are often more than happy to be included, to be asked for their vision, the information. I'm not only talking about some kind of technicalities related to the translation of whatever foreign language. It's way beyond that, of course. It's really about thinking together and rethinking together what a 21st museum can be. And I really think that it's a matter of survival for these institutions as they face a number of issues related to their cost, their budgets, and also, local governments that may be tempted to shrink the cultural budget. So all this needs to be taken into account.
Yeah, the matter of survival could also be included in the matter of subsidy or funding criteria. But now I have to give over the authority because the audience asked. So I have more questions, but Clara,
there are two questions.
There are two questions. I hope we are not running out of time.
Let's see, yeah. So the one question is, let me take the opportunity to ask you how you view the issue of class in culture, which increasingly strikes me as an important factor in terms of diversity.
Yeah, very important question, because we're discussing class a lot these days. Who wants to answer? Was it?
No, it was just...
So, Hilary, you want to...
Hi, yes, no, I'm very happy to discuss that. I think here in the UK, of course, we have a society that retains structures of social class, even though we might not want to talk about it. But we very much have a society that is built on class. And it's important that we work to dismantle those structures, because if we are to embrace everyone into our cultural institutions, then we have to consider issues of social mobility. For me, again, I repeat, it comes down to relevance. If we are to be relevant to those around us, we cannot just appeal to people of one particular social class. I look at it as looking at a rainbow. If you're looking at a rainbow, you are wanting to enjoy all the colors of the rainbow. You wouldn't just pick red or blue. You would want the yellow and the green and the orange and the purple. So when you're looking at cultural provision, why just stick to one class? Why just stick to one monoculture when you have all of the display there before you?
Yeah, I think that's very important for this discussions, that we address the whole society, that we also think in broader diversity categories. So thank you very much for this answer. But we have a second question.
We have even more right now. It's great.
Now.
So it's starting. I think we should talk more about the institutional mechanisms of exclusion. Is this a part of the public discourse in France?
Pap Ndiaye, yeah.
Yes, this is a good question, as curators are often trained through very elitist schools. There is just one school, actually, that is the official state-run school for curators in France. And clearly, this is a big issue, as most museums recruit their curators within this, the alumni of their schools. So, as I said earlier, the point is not, I think it doesn't work if we think of a single cultural institution that would have a more active, proactive policy regarding diversity. I think we should look at the whole environment, the training of people, including curators, of course. The founding issue, it's as we would say, it's an ecosystem. We should look at things in a systematic way, and also discuss with schools, discuss with universities as to find the best ways to recruit, create studentships, sign partnerships with institutions, including universities that are on the margins. So there is such a proactive effort to make if we want to succeed way beyond the walls of the institution itself.
Yeah, thank you very much for this answer. We are addressing the issue of the promotion of young talents, and the second part of this for expert talks. So I think we can take one more question, and then I would like to place my final question. I still have one.
Okay. Let's see. We have now 3 questions. I have now to see.
Okay, so
which one is more
perhaps
important?
on leadership, coming back to leadership and transformation processes, perhaps?
There is one, let's see.
In development of leadership.
In Germany, museums are taxpayer funded. I feel they will also exist further, even with decreasing audience numbers, as the decision makers do not have an awareness.
Okay, this is the awareness question, which we still discuss, of course. So, Hilary, I mean, it's about not only about skills. My last question would be about the concrete skills they need, but raising awareness. This is what I meant before when I asked Pap. So how do we increase the pressure for people who are not affected by the consequences? So again, how do we raise awareness or this inner motivation?
Thank you. I think, Pap mentioned it, and it's about civic engagement. It's about really looking at the power that we have as individuals in society to engage with our cultural institutions. Yes, they are funded by the state, but those in the state also have a responsibility to engage with the state. We are the state. So where does it stop? So we need to be the people who put pressure on politicians, on local government, as well as the cultural institutions to say, how are you representing me? How are you using the resources for my benefit? State investment in culture is in order to benefit civil society. So if civil society is not benefiting, then we have a fundamental question with those who are deploying state funds on our behalf. And I think it goes there. I think it's not so much a lack of awareness. I think it's more a case of ignoring.
This is very important. Pap was also nodding. Okay, I just hand over because it's about the relevance of culture in our society, also in our societal processes. Pap, did you want to add something? I didn't want to take
No, I fully agree with Hilary. Yeah. I think that all those issues should be part of the conversation, of the democratic conversation, especially at time of elections, local elections, national elections. I must say that too often cultural issues are a footnote in political programs, in the conversation that takes place during the political campaign. So I think it's very important to make culture more central and to make culture a topic of our political conversations when it is needed.
Thank you so much. I have a very, very short final question. Can you just drop a few words? Which skills do leaders need? Just very concrete. What do they need? What should they start with tomorrow when we are finished?
I think if I can start, I think you need the skills, you need technical skills, you need people management skills, but really you need the vision. You need to be able to see beyond what we have today to what we want for tomorrow. And if you can see it, And if you can describe it, and then you can develop the technical skills to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Pap.
Yes, I agree. Vision, strategic vision, and I would add empathy.
Empathy,
I think it's
nice.
so important to figure out and understand and deeply understand what others have to say, what others have to bring. So yes, vision and empathy.
Thank you so much to both of you. I would have loved to talk longer with you. As it is in these conferences, we have to stop here. But dear audience, Pap Ndiaye will join us later in the informal talks on WonderMe. And you can meet him together with me at 4:15 p.m. Central European Time. Please come back, ask your next questions. Thank you so much, Hilary and Pap. And now I will switch to the second topic part. Thank you so much.